Madam Gumbonзванда, you are visiting North Macedonia as a part of a tour of Western Balkan countries. Over the past 2 days, you had meetings with representatives of institutions and NGOs, civil organizations, and signed memorandums for collaboration. What did you learn about gender equality in our country?
I think the first thing which I learned was just the hospitality of the people. Let me start there and just thank the people of this country for the extraordinary hospitality. It was also very special to be in a country where the woman is a president. We have very few women in the presidency in the world. As we know, we just came out of the General Assembly and there were only 10 women who spoke and who were there as heads of states out of over 100. So that was also important. But what I also learned about gender equality is that there's significant progress in the country. There are laws that exist, and at the same time, there's more that needs to be done around implementation of those laws and also perspectives around what does gender equality mean for the rural women, for the young women, for the professionals, and also gender equality by the authorities who work every day on these issues. So indeed it was a deep learning for me and insight to meet with the ministries of social policy, demography and youth, where we have the equal opportunities work, where UN Women's work is anchored, and to also meet with the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Water Economy was so important, because this is also about lives for women. This is where gender equality is. I learned so much about gender equality in this country from the work that we are doing around gender and statistics, and to see how both in the meeting with the Director on Gender and Statistics, but also today when I went to the Resource Center, to also see how is all that work on gender statistics being used to inform policy, to build capacity in the institutions, and to support resource allocation with gender responsive budgeting. So I've had a full experience out of from this moment and the days that I've spent here in North Macedonia.
What should we focus on the most in the future?
In the future, there are 4 issues which I would advise. You know, the role of the United Nations is to support member states, is to work with communities, and for us on our mandate is to advance gender equality, the empowerment and rights for women. What I have heard, and which is critical to focus on, first is it is very important to focus on the issues of violence against women and girls, just so that women are safe, secure in their everyday private lives, in addition to their public lives, and that they can have access to survivor support and protection and safe spaces. So this was one bundle of issues which was very clear. And secondly is really the focus on economic empowerment for women, the economy, so that there are jobs, income, well-being, but for salaries, so that the women farmers can send their honey or their vegetables to the market, they can get good income. But for that to happen, the country should focus on education, especially for the most excluded communities. So I really heard about the importance of also addressing some of these issues like violence against girls, child marriage among the Roma communities. But education and economic empowerment is critical for women.
Is it different, the situation in North Macedonia, comparing to other countries from Western Balkans?
UN Women is present in this region with our regional office in Turkey. Therefore, we have a significant presence in this country. I've had the opportunity during my first visit to the region to be in Bosnia-Herzegovina, to have discussions with women from Albania, from Serbia, from Kosovo. What I heard from the women in terms of comparing, and equally from my visit in Bosnia-Herzegovina, are basically three issues. It's important to have peace. Women want security where they are able to simply go about their ordinary lives. So there is that underlying important issue of women, peace and security, and for women to be at the decision-making tables that find solutions to these issues. What I also find very common was the importance of women in public office, especially in local authorities, that women want to be in the decision-making where they are able to say, do we have local infrastructure, local resources providing services where women live their lives, whether it's water, it's collection of refuse, it's energy resources, it's schools. So it's women in decision making has come up very clearly, and which is comparable within the various regions. And thirdly, it's around institutions that we need to continue to support our governments in the region to have the necessary policies, gender equality policies, action plans which are resourced and funded, to also have sectoral policies, to have data to monitor the implementation, and to have capacity within those institutions to step by step ensure that we have gender equality and we have opportunities within our communities. I also felt that this region is very strong culturally. It has strong cultures. It has strong communities. And it is, I'm an African woman. When we hear of Europe, it's also very important to understand the diversities of Europe. So being in the Western Balkans was very important for me to also understand what are the issues around Western Europe, the Mediterranean, what does accession into the EU means, what are the dynamics. So that perspective of understanding the region was also very important and very special. And with issues of migration, this became an important discussion, an important perspective to understand the movement of people within the region for jobs, for visiting families and loved ones, and for simply enjoying the beauty of this region and this country. I actually went up that mountain. It's beautiful to watch the city, to watch, to just enjoy the forest and watch the city from above.
We are approaching the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. What significant outcomes would you highlight from these documents in the context of reaffirming certain commitments and goals, and why is it especially important now?
This is so special because today I met one of the women from this country who was in Beijing, and I was in Beijing. So we started to share around what happened 29 years ago in Beijing, the 12 critical areas, and why the world agreed on those, and what's so special, as you say, is we reached the 30th landmark, and we said those 12 issues remain so critical: addressing poverty and the economy, violence against women and women's human rights, the issues of education and health, the environment, climate change, but also the role of the media. In Beijing, it was one of the critical areas of concern that we need the media to be part of the solutions, and indeed having strong institutions in the girl child were priority. So as we approach the 30th and the first regional consultation will be in Geneva. I'm very glad that this country is committed to the Beijing Platform for Action. So first, what is significant is that member states, our countries, must uphold their commitments to advancing gender equality, to empowering women and girls, and to promoting the human rights of women and girls around those 12 issues, 12 priorities that they defined. The second, which is important, is that our countries have been taking steps to address these issues. We must learn from those experiences. This country has experiences that I have seen. So the whole area around gender responsive budgeting and gender auditing by the Auditor General on performance and having training is a good practice. We must scale up. We must share that. So I'm expecting the Beijing Plus 30 to lift for each country. What does each country have to offer? 30 years down the line, we're saying we need women in decision making. In this country, we say, and we have a women president, we have a woman leading the Ministry of Finance, we have women in these critical mayors. That's progress. That's progress, though we need more, but I feel we need to say progress. I also expect that 30 years down the line, some of those issues which women raised then, in which the world has not really moved sufficiently, they would be discussed for solutions. When we met in Beijing, I was a young woman. I was still very fresh from my university. I was raising my little kids. The war I had gone through in my own life was still very fresh. So at Beijing was clarity by the women of the world that we want a world with no war. 30 years down the line, women are still dying, and it's preventable. So at Beijing, I'm also looking at how we can lift on what was discussed by the member states at the Pact for the Future and the UN General Assembly, that we need a world of peace. We need a just world, a world of equality, but a world where we can have economic opportunities for our people. Yes. So that's my expectation on the Beijing.
It's also related to the Summit of the Future and also the Pact of the Future. In New York, we saw a divided world. It was very sad to see that, but the main question is, can we reform UN organization in this world situation in general now, with wars and a divided world?
I believe in multilateralism. After the tragedy of the Second World War, the UN was founded. And there are many countries, there are many possibilities which the UN has delivered in that time. And I felt, and just like you, I'm a staff of the United Nations and was closely following on the gender equality and other issues. I felt that the fact that issues were on the table, negotiated until after midnight or whatever hour it was, until the last minute, that's commitment. Because otherwise, the negotiations would just have been abandoned and no effort made. So the fact that there was an effort by the member states to go to the last sentence and reach a measure of consensus was a good step in itself. At the same time, implementation is important. In the reform, which was discussed in the Pact for the Future, which is equally important to us, was the review around the restructuring of the Security Council. Yes. it was a good discussion. To also have countries like Africa having a seat in the Security Council, the small countries also having a seat, that was good. The discussion around the reform in relation to the other institutions, financial institutions, was also important, because the issues around debt and governance and global governance of the IFIs, it was important that it was discussed. Equally for us, and much more for our mandate as UN Women, was that whole discussion around the reform of ECOSOC-related institutions and the revitalization of the Commission on the Status of Women. We were really glad that member states reached that decision, because the Committee on the Status of Women was one of the very small committees established in 1946, together with a Committee on Human Rights. And over the 79 years, we've had the Convention on the Elimination of Forms of Discrimination Against Women, we've had the World Conference on Women, the Commission on the Status of Women was established. So this reform to now say, let's strengthen again the Commission on the Status of Women was a good decision, because the member states were saying we don't want to go below the current standard, but we want to strengthen, building on the current standard. You asked whether it will be achieved. Yes, I believe member states, once they make commitments, they should commit to implementation.
What is your next professional challenge within the UN activities? You mentioned that you're going for Geneva from Skopje.
Yes, my professional challenge is the Deputy Executive Director at UN Women, 3. And it's the professional opportunity. First is to continue to bring the voices and experiences of women in our communities to inform the decision-making of our member states on especially the issues to do with peace and security, violence against women, and poverty. And poverty. So I'm going to Geneva, I go to different countries. So that is the first. The second is the world must put resources to human security. I really feel that professionally and by my responsibility, the world can afford to reduce military expenditure and increase investment in education and health and food security and transport and energy. Just buying one helicopter less could increase the quality of a couple of schools in many of these countries. The real security of a nation, it's when its people are safe, educated, and able. Last year, our data is showing that $4.2 trillion were spent on military expenditure in the world, and over 119 million children and girls were out of school. And some girls are being married. Child marriage is happening, including here in North Macedonia, because of poverty, including in my own continent in Africa. I was the AU ambassador on child marriage. So I'm like, our countries are rich. I can speak of Africa very directly. Say, okay, these are rich. This is a rich continent. But why are girls being married? Because we are poor. So the next challenge, as you say, is support our member states to prioritize the resources of the nation to build the future of our children. And that future requires peace, ending poverty, and building capabilities from our communities. Thank you to your team.
Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.